We have marketed ridiculous athletes who haven't won anything for years.
That commercial opportunity is not being seized because of the cultural conversation around this.
There's an economist who says that she has had nearly $1 billion impact on the league.
And then how much does she make?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Brand Fathers.
This week, we are taking you into the wide world of sports marketing, but as a straw man for other things happening in marketing in general. So we are going to discuss the very controversial Caitlin Clark. We got hundreds of DMs after we mentioned Caitlin Clark on the last pod. So we really have to break down from a perspective of if you have a generational athlete and you are trying to be held back by the populace, how do you play something like that? And we'll discuss that through here. We're also going to dive deeper into some of these other NBA campaigns, the fabled Let Her Cook campaign that dominated social media last week, and then move over to sports in general, because what we're noticing in sports media content is a lot of copycats, from initiatives to brands looking alike. So we are going to workshop how to make a brand stand out. We are going to talk about what is the line and not, and just walk through some of these awesome initiatives coming down. This is Jordan Rogers' lane. We made sure to incorporate running so we could also be an Ashwin lane pod, and then everything is my lane. So let's lock in.
Oren spans many categories.
Yeah, y'all want to do defense? We can break down the Palantir website right now.
Palantir versus who would be the other big player? Boeing or someone?
And Durrell, yeah, exactly. We can go legacy, so that versus kind of a Lockheed. But honestly, what you got to think about from defense positioning is that it's not about the consumer. It's not about your opinion. It's about the enterprise opinion. You have a TAM of one, and that one is the U.S. fucking government.
The U.S. government. That's right. Yeah. Are you buying the product or the brand? Military defense.
Predator drone. Reaper. Reaper's a sleeper choice, honestly, for value to brand on drone.
Well,
everyone pulls out the Predator, right?
Well, yeah. There's a whole new drone defense. Anyway, this has gotten dark pretty quick.
Have you guys seen the little guy, the Black Hornet, the little one? Anyway, we're not going to do this here.
No. Ashwin, where does this find you? Where does this pod find you today?
In LA, after further aggravating my rib injuries.
Truly living up to the father's name on this podcast.
When you're out here playing tennis, what brands are present in this? You like a Wilson guy? What's the racket from?
We've got a couple Babolat rackets. The only Wilson appearance on the court today was the coach had a Wilson hat on. Not a heavy presence today.
Babolat
technology. Do we have a tennis tracking app? Do we have some sort of LiDAR ball scan? All right.
No, none of that. There's a infrequently used ball machine, but otherwise just a strictly analog game.
What's the bag looking like?
Yeah,
I don't have a bag out here. I just have
Wilson.
my rackets.
Wilson.
You just raw dogging a racket out here in LA.
Raw dog. Yeah. Racket, a couple of tennis balls in your pocket, like a ball boy at Wimbledon.
Looking for a reason to live.
Yeah. Mike Sherman from Market out there in LA was loves tennis and has gotten obsessed in the last couple of years. And he has some sort of app that will track video, and he'll post clips of him volleying back and forth. I'm here for it. I'm probably
absolute legend. I think follows all of us. We can break our no male guest rule and Mike come on the pod.
Oh yeah, we can get Mike on the pod.
Yeah, I thought he was based in New York.
He used to be.
Everyone eventually
makes their way.
They're coming out here. Yes.
Wow.
Once again, another day in paradise, 83 degrees and sunny. Asking myself how I'm going to get anything done on my laptop today.
It's insane. I looked at the weather last week when I was headed out there, and it was low of 62, high of 82 every single day.
Painfully nice.
It is painfully incredible. All right. Well, we'll get Mike on the pod. We'll do a tennis episode, the state of tennis, perhaps.
But for now, it's the state of the WNBA. So
that's right.
What is happening there?
All right, Ashwin. Well, it is one of the most highest engaged topics that I can have on my channel. And sometimes I step into a hornet's nest that I do not even anticipate. There are sides of these arguments that I did not even know existed. I just thought, oh, well, we have a cultural force we have not seen since Tiger Woods in golf or Michael Jordan in the NBA. She happens to be a white girl from Iowa.
As most cultural forces are. But yeah.
Indeed, yes. Which also makes this an interesting angle. But it probably like everything in our culture today, you have 51% of the population that is down and about it, and then you have 49% of the population who has got to be completely against it because that's just the way that we are today.
But let's set the commercial opportunity scale. So what's interesting here is you have a generational athlete. And when I put generational athletes, we really have Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, LeBron James,
Yep.
Steph Curry, like somewhat argument on like Luka Doncic, like sort of, not yet exactly, like not quite.
Yeah.
There is really not many where they transcend the sport they are in to become a global phenomenon. Obviously, there's a bunch of soccer guys, Messi, a few others at kind of that level.
Yeah.
But this is very rare. It has the last time it was a woman is the Williams sisters, or
yes,
basically.
I would think so.
That is rare in and of itself. There's only, let's say, 10 or 12 of these people over the last 20 years that exist. And so with that comes a massive commercial opportunity, right? Because especially with girls sports in the US just being like a dominant fiscal thing that from soccer to basketball to everything that comes with that, there's a huge commercial opportunity to sell lots of shoes, to build cultural movements off of this, to then, there's like a number of ripple effects that Jordan probably could explain better, but that commercial opportunity is not being seized because of the cultural conversation around this.
And what is the cultural conversation?
Well, let me lay out a couple of statistics for you first.
Okay.
I brought the stat sheet. You know
WNBA attendance in the year prior to Caitlin Clark arriving in the league was 6,600 people at a game. For example, the Dallas Wings, who just got the number one pick, Paige Beckers, who also was like very, very popular, has a big following on social, won a couple national championships at UConn, maybe just one. But they play in a college arena here, like a small college, not like a big one, like UT Arlington.
You're not shutting down the Longhorn Stadium, yeah.
No, yeah. And that's the case in a lot of places. So, but that increased to 10,000. The average WNBA attendance increased to 10,000 the next year. They are now selling out NBA stadiums. Let's see here. There was an 88% difference in games. We have the stat here. When she is on the road, it's wild. She basically will sell out every game that she goes to on the road. And
people have to see it in person, right? And I think the last thing that we saw like this, where you have to see it in person, was Steph Curry, where it was like people would go to a basketball game purely because they wanted to see like his warm-up routine and do that. And this is over any sport. There's so little you truly have to see in person. Messi in Miami, some level of that, but like not quite the same, obviously, because they travel around the way they do here. But that is a big phenomenon.
Well, and I think the challenge with comparing it to soccer is that soccer is already the dominant global sport in the world, right? So like Messi and Ronaldo take it up a notch, and they're certainly cultural forces that are massive, but it's already this really large pie. And I think this is like making a big splash in a smaller pond traditionally that is now getting much bigger.
Yeah, this is like, honestly, if we were, from an attendance perspective, this is like if we were like, hey, you have to go see the pro pickleball league that's happening right now, right?
Yeah. So the Fever organization was valued close to around 90 million the year before she arrived, and now it's around 350 million. There's an economist who says that she has had nearly $1 billion impact on the league.
And then how much does she make?
Ashwin, what would you guess her salary would be? If we said, so LeBron James makes 60 million this year.
Okay. What would you think her salary is with this impact?
2.5.
$76,000.
$76,000.
No, that's not right. That's not true. That's not a true number.
$76,500.
Now she has endorsement deals and other things, but her salary from the league is $76,000.
Who is the highest paid player in the league?
I think it's Asia Wilson.
And how much does she make?
Hold on, let me tell you. $250,000.
Wow. Okay, so she makes $250,000. Do you know the revenue of the league relative to the NBA?
That's where this gets to be a challenging conversation. So the NBA back in a long time ago started funding the WNBA.
Okay.
Basically bolster the sport and bring bring more people to the game, men, women, boys, girls. And so it's kind of been, I don't know, Oren, correct me on this, but like almost like a nonprofit. I mean, it is in name. Like it's not a nonprofit, but it is a profit venture that has lost money every year. Okay. So most people, particularly like the haters against this conversation, will say that it lost 200 million last year, and it loses money most every year on the balance sheet. But it's really tangled up with like the NBA and has gotten really hard to figure that out.
All right. And so I think what we want to frame up is, so this is the conversation happening. There's this huge commercial opportunity, once in a lifetime athlete. We've got that framed out. Now, then there is what would happen if this was another athlete, and what would a brand do? So say you are a brand who signed it. Nike spent a lot of money to sign her to a deal. She's also signed with Wilson, I believe, on some like secondary stuff.
Wilson, State Farm, Gatorade.
And so Wilson, State Farm, and Gatorade have used her a bit, I would kind of describe. Nike has basically
quite a bit.
Quite a bit. Yeah, that's right. So they use her pretty well. How would you rank them using her on a scale of like 1 to 10, each of those brands, real quick?
State Farm, 10. I mean, she's on almost every commercial. State Farm just hammers you.
She's on TV with the State Farm guy,
Every sports commercial. Gatorade, I would say like probably 9. They've rolled her out ever since. And if you think about Gatorade, it's a little bit easier. You basically shoot a commercial of her looking cool and then you Photoshop in like Gatorade sweating, out of her. And I think you don't have to like reshoot that every time. And then the other one that's big for her, Gatorade, State Farm, Gainbridge, like insurance. I mean, they're not doing a lot of TV spots, but who was the other one?
I thought Wilson she had to deal with.
Oh, yeah, Wilson. Yeah. And so she has a signature basketball, which also, to their credit, is like much easier. Like I've made basketballs. You can make a basketball much easier.
But they're not afraid to commercialize this.
No.
And then we have Nike, where we have not seen a shoe.
Right.
First and foremost, or a line.
Yeah.
I think that's what we wanted to kind of discuss here. And also put to the frame to Ashwin's less in the weeds of sports of this caliber, obviously running and the things he's into, tennis, but like of the like the mainstream TV version. And so I think we want to kind of put to you, if you're looking at a brand like this, like how does one navigate this situation? And we'll kind of play the back and forth. But the reason that she doesn't have this opportunity, like, so if we're looking at this purely from a fiscal perspective, it would be like, yeah, of course she should have her own shoe already launched. Of course there should be a women's and girls basketball line, maybe even crossing over into men's with a level of popularity that actually breaks this down. But because of the cultural conversation, that's not happening. And so I think we want to role play a bit of what that conversation looks like inside Nike.
Well, I'm going to show you what Nike.com looks like. They've improved this since I was making my videos a couple months ago. So they have a nice landing page. They have like her, t-shirts. That's an All-Star Weekend t-shirt, screen print. This one is here. They have this for Paige Beckers and others. I think graphic tees are easy to get done.
That's like her merch. That's not like a line.
I know. We would understand this a little more like of what a line looks like. So I could show you what Asia Wilson's line looks like. It looks amazing. It's really nice. And, that's what happens when you get a signature shoe and you get a signature line. So you have like a whole campaign that's built out around it. You have the shoe itself, and then you would have like complimentary merch. You'd have like whatever, like her signature leg sleeve. You would have apparel with your name on it and all that type of stuff. So, I think myself and some others have been a bit critical of Nike. I think it's hard for me, though, because I understand the complicated nature of these deals and what they're dealing with. So here's Asia Wilson, who many would argue is like on court the best performer of basketball. Like she's been in the league almost 10 years. She is the best. She's won the MVP. She won a title. This is like the best performing person. But we have this conversation in the NBA as well for years. There are people like Jokic who are the MVP who is not going to be marketed at all.
Not so shorts, not going to lie.
Yeah. He also has he signed with a Chinese brand 360, and the shoes are really bad. I saw them in Shields recently. So I think that the argument from, myself and others, like when you have this cultural force who's creating nearly $1 billion of value, you would trip over yourself. So when LeBron James came out of high school, he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated at 16 years old. He came into the league. They had a sample signature shoe ready for him to view in the pitch room. They had large, massive billboards of him the day he came into the league. There were commercials for him. He was a massive force. And they have been slow to kind of adopt this for her for kind of other reasons. A lot of people tell you it's because Asia Wilson, the people believe that she deserved the signature shoe first, and you couldn't jump the line and give it to this young girl. And so then you bring in all kinds of like race, you have gender, you have politics. Like it is a fascinating hornet's nest that you can dabble into. And
so the dark side of this, so basically, if you were to release that Caitlin Clark one quick, it'd be like, hey, you're jumping the line of all these deserving athletes that came before it.
Yes.
Since she is often roughed around on the court, she has a fan base of people who feel that is racially motivated and then not called correctly, who like come for the people that rough her up online, which has then led to like a number of things. People then associate that with, oh, there's all these MAGA people that are fans of the league now, which again, back to our 51-49% point, if you go to any NBA game in Utah or wherever it is, you're getting just as many conservative people as you are liberal people that are at these games, if not like more or less. And so there's some degree of like, that's representative of the populace. That's just when you want a new fan base, you don't necessarily get to choose who your fan base is. But then if you're Nike, you're being like, okay, well, we don't want to make it look like anyone's jumping the line. We don't want to look like we're trying to activate this base. But then that means that we're basically not going to sell anything. And to devil's advocate that, I also look at, like, for instance, I've talked about like on my street before where I have a lot of parents and things like that, where dads of girls are genuinely excited by how excited their daughters are about watching Caitlin Clark. And so they want to be able to say, I want to purchase that. I want to go into that. I want to like enable this new generation of girls to get excited about sports. And so you're kind of missing that opportunity to be afraid of this opportunity. And I'm curious, Jordan, you're way more experienced like inside this niche. Like, how do you make decisions like that? And then Ashton, from a more impartial perspective, like, how do you feel, do you navigate this in a, you know, in the world of Zoran, you know?
Ashwin, let me tell you this. I think here's the cultural forces change, you know, and I think as this started to rise, like we were coming post 2021, like a lot of reckoning had happened in some of these corporations, you know, and so the old argument, though, I would tell you that the Nikes of the world, the Adidases of the world, the Lululemons of the world, even right now, you are signing an athlete for their influence. We're not like putting the like, well, what have they done on the court? Like, and you will have a small minority of people who will claim that generally, but you are looking for the most marketable athlete. And we have marketed ridiculous athletes who haven't won anything for years over the, you know, course of generations because they are just marketable. You know, some people just have that charisma, you know, like Kyle Kuzma gets deals and Jordan Clarkson gets a big deal with Lululemon, and like all kinds of people get big deals even though they're not like dominant on court. And so I think that would be a bit of the devil's advocate. This one has created a different dynamic that lays out there. So from the outside, Ashwin, if you're making decisions and you hear about the impact that this woman is having on the league, do you throw caution to the wind and say, let's grab onto this cultural force and let's, you know, capitalize upon this? Or do you say, we need to sense the cultural forces and be more sensitive to what's going on in the larger landscape?
Yeah, I think my question is like, how outsized or how large is the negative sentiment around her where they're saying, hey, you're activating this like fan base that we don't want to align with? Is that just, hey, there's a vocal minority that gets kind of an outsized share of voice because they're in the comment section, but the actual majority of people really like her and support her and like don't think twice about this additional conversation? And so I need to see more information on that.
Yes, I don't think they're ready for that level of attention. If you get let's say that every time something negative happens to her, there's 300 or 400 people that get fired up online and like go threaten the players that roughed her up. That's probably a good representative sample. But you've only ever had 3 trolls in your life, not 400. But then you're activating hundreds of thousands of people who are just like genuinely have a positive sentiment on her. That's probably a good where it's like, it seems to be this crazy thing because that's so many people when you're not used to it. But then the big, more silent majority who just appreciates the game behind it is a different thing.
Yeah.
And that's hard. Look, that's hard to deal with, though, because if you've never had that many haters inside a sport or for a person, and you're also compensated $40,000 a year, now you're worried you might want to have security. There's a lot of this kind of factor that comes on, and what are you encouraging or not?
I do think it's hard to justify that. Ashwin, though, I think based on all the numbers we just showed you, the argument that I would make is that statistically, there are much more people who really love Caitlin Clark and then are coming to the league, which I think you can argue statistically. And then there are cases, and the anti-Clark people who are in my comments and DMs occasionally, who I didn't actually realize really existed very much, were like, they call her the Caitlin Clark clan. I mean, like, she is a grand wizard, like leading people with tiki torches to line up to get into a women's basketball game so that they can torch. And I mean, look, I'm not one of those people who thinks that racism does not exist. I've studied art history in America. I live in the South. Like, there are all kinds of things here. So it's not to say that doesn't exist. But they would argue then that she has brought a different level of fan now who, you know, players claim they need more security. They are getting more threats on social media. Now, this is a larger landscape issue that I would argue to a lot of these people is like, welcome to professional sports. If you are a kicker for a SEC team on a Saturday and you miss a kick,
firebombing your house, brother.
Yes, I don't care if you are white, black, brown, you are getting death threats and your life is going to feel in danger because there's just a large number of people of attention. And the larger factor that we probably haven't even unpacked here is sports betting has now taken over the world, and you opened up that can of worms where you get a large number of people who get very vicious when they lose.
Because you messed up their parlay. Or
yeah,
whatever,
their stupid parlay now. So there are all kinds of parlays in the WNBA now as well for people to go against her nemesis, the people claim, like Angel Reese.
Yeah,
which we haven't talked about.
The fabled brick parlay, the Angel Reese to miss the first shot is a a surefire that I know my whole group chat has in the.
There are a lot of people there who are, although anyway, we don't have time to go into the Angel Reese battle, but I don't know, Ashwin. So that's our answer to you. What do you say to that?
I mean, I think if it's just a binary yes or no leaning into her, I think it's you lean into her and you do a lot more with her. Based on some of the numbers that you shared, it's clear she's pulling a lot more viewership and an engaged fan base into the sport. And so if you have these relationships with her, you're sponsoring her in some way, why not take advantage of that?
I'm going to show you an example, which is probably a good segue for Gatorade, where they utilize both athletes. And I think my appeal a lot of time. Now, look, here's what I want to get. I need to give a disclaimer. What a lot of people don't understand in sports marketing is, let's say Nike said, absolutely, let's do it. We want to do big commercials with you. There are a lot of factors at play. Okay, so they need approval from her agent. She has to have time. She's sponsored by Gatorade, State Farm, Gamebridge, Prada. Like, she has a lot of other commitments. So even if Nike said, finally, we got our stuff together, we want to do something with you, you have to get through her agent. Then you have to get through her, perhaps the Fever and the WNBA, and then her parents and her team who are helping manage her. So, like, there are a lot of factors at play. It's not always just the brand saying, yes, we want to do something with you. So I do want to acknowledge that, and I think that's what there's some larger. She may say, I don't want a big campaign because I've already gotten enough hate from people. So, like, go put whoever you want up on the board or whatever, because I need a rest. So that is a possibility that happens. And I've gotten murmurs of that, of like, hey, it's not as easy or as clear as you think. So I do think there are issues there with that. I'll show you an example that could lead us into this let her cook conversation where Gatorade utilized, sorry, I didn't have it up.
Yeah, so Gatorade, and while you're pulling in, Gatorade
Go ahead.
took WNBA stars and then put them with the tagline, let her cook, which obviously is a double entendre for, like right now, when people do a good thing, just in case you don't know it, like you let them cook, quote unquote. But there's a lot of backlash to this, which I found kind of strange because this is the kind of campaign when you look at copy where you go, okay, cool, this is funny. They are taking a traditional trope that would be negative and they're turning it into a positive. That is what I hear when I see this campaign. But then the backlash was like, hey, this is terrible.
Yes. So here's what I want to show you an example. Yeah. So there's a guy, maybe you can put the audio on there.
Yeah, she can cook whatever she wants to. Meatloaf or pork steak, fried potatoes, that cornbread be good. Really, anything.
The accent. That's got to be staged, bro.
I would, you know what? Now I'm looking at that. Like, if Gatorade were smart, they would have planted this guy because Barstool is picking it up and it's gotten millions of impressions. Now, Antonio, let me show
some
this
PR
one,
team
okay?
or someone at the agency who was like, yo, we need to make this crack. It's just like,
that's next level.
Big Red
playing with the puppet
But
strings.
again, I feel like that just generates the conversation where it's like, okay, cool, that's what they are striking against. But I don't know, Ashwin, you're a noted copy master. How do you feel here?
Hold on. I want to present to you one more thing though, Ashwin. Hold on. Because I did a postmortem on this campaign and I feel I'll play it on 1.2 speed, but
play that video.
What I would argue is that I think they retroactively added this tagline when they figured out that it was going to draw people off sides, because the actual tagline in here, and I think they changed the thumbnail or at least added or figured it out late, because the monologue that she delivers, and this is an example of actually utilizing Asia Wilson and Caitlin Clark in the same campaign. It can be done. Her whole thing is about like how they took L's and now they are making the W. So here we go.
Running one-handed.
I like that move.
Here, W's aren't given. You've got to earn it. By losing. Losing sweat.
Never gave up. I ain't never
Putting up shots till you lose track of time.
never make it up. Back for everything.
Losing count of how many days we've worked for this.
But we in the kitchen.
Sweat for this.
Let her cook. We gon' come
And through all those L's,
Too much cake, I bow. Let her cook.
we didn't just get W's.
Okay, let me cook. Hold on, wait a minute.
We made the W.
Let her cook.
Okay. So there's no mention of cooking in there other than the soundtrack is Glorilla's Let Her Cook, which was made like months ago.
Yep.
I think they just added. I mean, I think they add, like I thought that it was fine. You know, it's like I'm at least like, hey, you actually utilized both of these women in this campaign. A lot of others, like, well done.
And I think it gets people's, number one, like people are talking about this. So they've gotten a lot of exposure from it. They are not, let him cook. I probably have like heard it for a year now, maybe just like a tad longer. So it's not like this terribly outdated phrase and people still say it. So I think it's like still somewhat timely. And then the play on that, it's kind of like if you're young and you've heard that phrase, you get it. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. If you're older, you maybe don't understand it. And you're just like, okay, whatever that means. Maybe you don't think twice about it. But there is, I think it's a fun play on words. And like, I'm sure they assessed or like thought like, hey, this might be polarizing in like a couple of ways because people might take it this other way of we're saying something else. But it's clearly not the case that they're supporting a totally different idea. And it kind of reminds me of there was this Burger King campaign maybe last year where the line was like, women belong in the kitchen. That was like the headline text. And then the whole thing was about like getting more women into like senior positions and like the fast food, like QSR industry. And it was just like it was like a thing that gets your attention.
Yeah, I think it's not bad. I mean, I think if I were, but my appeal was basically like, if you were going to lean into the Let Her Cook and the whole like kitchen thing and all that, like, then build the campaign around that. I think like to me it was a little disjointed. Like I'm overthinking it, but I think they shot that whole thing and then figured out later, oh, we need this tagline that's really going to draw people off sides, because that line doesn't connect to the monologue that they give, nor the like tagline made the W. Like none of that actually, it doesn't connect to me. I think you could have built out this whole thing on like, I don't know. Yeah, we cook in totally different ways or whatever, like, and have the whole thing around, or some tropes about the kitchen and all that. Like, this is our kitchen, these are our tools, whatever.
But like, do you know the common usage of the phrase?
Let him cook? I mean, yeah, like my favorite golfer, Minwoo Lee, has trademarked it now for his brand. Like, yeah, I mean, it's like very much. To be honest, I didn't think twice about it. When I saw it, I was like, yeah, let her cook, whatever. Like,
all right. So the question: where is that line on the cultural side of who understands "let her cook" or not? Now the kids all get it.
The kids get it.
This is a YouTube phrase. I think any like Gen Alpha understands. I think any Gen Z understands, and then I think it gets really odd from there. Yeah, like what would you give the percent of Gen X that understands what that phrase means? Like some parents, and that's a 15%.
15, yeah.
And then millennials, let's say it's a straight 50-50.
Yeah, I think it's 50-50 of millennials. And then,
but those are when you look at who are the upset, you have the Gen Z is probably the most upset generation. And millennials and Gen X are like neck and neck right after it, right? But if Gen Z understands it, they're out of the equation. They're not going to get upset. But then you have the other two most upset generations don't understand a campaign. Maybe that's where this line is.
Yeah, and I mean, that's Gatorade's target. They would want Gen Z, Gen Alpha. Like, they definitely want this to hit with the audience that's not going to think twice about it, I guess.
But I think it's the insight. It's like when you're looking at, using cultural references in copy, like breaking down your target market and the other markets that are going to see it and then who's going to digest it is like pretty useful. I don't know. Do we like double, like entendre cultural copy as a collective?
I think it has to be executed in a pretty timely manner, and you have to have your finger on the pulse of, hey, are people still saying this? Like, you could very much foresee a situation where like some hat brand drops like a no cap campaign.
Well, this is like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, right?
I mean, this was like big Dwayne energy that came 2 years after like BDE, but like BDE was like extremely short lived, and so like the phrasing like "let him cook,"
classic Pete Davidson driven cultural moment.
You can, I don't know, you just have to be kind of like so tapped into how like online linguistic trend.
We call this the Bam Adebayo to Pete Davidson relevance scale. We use this all the time.
Does Ashwin know who Bam Adebayo is?
We talked about him earlier in the group chat, but no, absolutely not. There's no, because why would he? But he's an all-star, a swaggerless all-star.
No shot.
That's where we go to the relevance chain.
So I think it's effective. I mean, I often encourage people, you should, if you want to get sharp with your market, you should say things that people outside of your target market don't understand. Because that is even a marketing tactic where someone stops and goes, wait, what? That doesn't even make sense. And like your target market, though, completely gets it. And that makes them feel like it's an inside joke, like they're on the inside of this vernacular. And so I love that tactic generally. And you could argue that they succeeded with this.
Yeah, I think so. I give it a W.
All right. No pun intended. Okay. Next up, though, speaking of your target market, should we do
let's transition into the copycats. I don't think we need to revisit the stud buds element. I think we I think we want to go into this Bandit Nike campaign in particular, right? Jordan, you kind of want to break down this scenario here?
I don't know. I saw
Tatum's video.
Tatum, yes, I saw her video. Let's see if
and to give some context here, we are seeing there are basically a lot of brands in the active, in running, et cetera, who are doing initiative, doing like races. So we talked about TBN, I believe, who did like the 24-hour kind of marathon race and live streamed it and became kind of a cultural function. There's now Represent doing something similar to that. And then Bandit, who's always kind of ahead of the curve on a lot of this. One of my favorite marketing campaigns they did is when they sponsored the Olympic team, launched their sponsor Olympic running from like the Grenadines. It was like 2 people and they were like, cool, we're going to like be an Olympic sponsor on that. And obviously we've talked about they're unsponsored before, but they had a race in a really particular format. Then Nike basically kind of took the same thing as. I think this question just goes into where is the line of this? I don't know if you're able to grab it, Jordan, or not.
Yeah. So what race did they run? Let's see here.
Okay, so Nike just announced a format change for their After Dark race tour in London. They're now including a 1K qualifier race that will determine which of the 3 10K races you're going to compete, as well as your position on the start grid of the racetrack. That's a part indoor, part outdoor circuit. And then there's a podium celebration for the winners of each of the 3 10K finals, which is super cool. But if it sounds familiar, it's because that's exactly how Bandit Running structured their Grand Prix race just a few weeks ago. Now, hey, no idea is completely original. Everyone pulls from somewhere. It's just so hard not to clock the oddly specific similarities here that I can't really give this the great artist steal pass, especially because, coincidence or not, it's a notable shift for the Nike After Dark series, in which they have never used this structure before. And it's coming off of their LA race, which didn't get the best reviews. And listen, this is the broader thing that I want to talk about, because this may seem silly, but it's the unfortunate copy-paste playbook we see with larger brands, intentional or no, in varying degrees of blatancy. Smaller brands or creators take a risk, it catches some heat, the legacy brand remixes it or just straight cops it. A very recent example is Under Armour's latest collection that looks so similar to Gumtree Golf. Jordan Rogers and Landforce have excellent videos that go into that, definitely worth the watch. Or remember the Satisfy Moth Tech tees that did so well, and then Nike dropped the exact same thing. Now, having holes in a shirt is not a novel concept, but the timing within the same industry just feels like, hey guys, what are we doing? Or remember when Peloton...
All right.
And so, yeah, if an initiative like this is this like over the line, especially, and I think to set the context for this, like Nike running has been decimated by the bandits of the world, right? They basically death by 1,000 cuts by not just big companies like the On, but all of these smaller, more boutique people as well. And so they are definitely in like fight back mode, which I think changes some of the dynamic here.
Ashwin, have you gone to any of these? Have you seen these like kind of cool, because they're all held in New York City, basically.
I have not been to these though.
Okay. Would you enter something like a relay race with your friends? Like, this is a novel concept. This to me is like, this is capitalizing on the energy of CrossFit like 15 years ago, and has kind of moved into High Rocks and then is now like expanded into run clubs. I had someone from On Running, I believe, who was critical that BPN had taken their race format. This is like this kind of like parking garage, like relay race thing. And now Bandit is doing it, and then Nike. So is this something you would do, or are you just like West Side Highway 10K by myself? On
Personally, Personally, I'm a West Side Highway by myself kind of runner, but that is no signal.
What about
whether
20
or not it's a good concept?
What
What about
I would like, look, I did a Spartan race with the lads and like would do a bunch of, and people are all, like I would do this. If they were doing this in Orange County, it would be in a heartbeat. If Bandit had something local, I'd be there.
really?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't go to like the big, like, like Represent does like a downtown LA, like anyone welcome run necessarily. But like if it was like some light competition and it was in my area and it was a brand I like, 100%.
Nice. Okay.
Especially with the lads, it's a group chat thing, right? It's like the guys from the basketball chat are like, hey, we're all doing a Spartan race. You want to sign up in 4 months? And it's like, oh yeah, shit, it's a good excuse to do more pull-ups,
Yeah, I mean, I generally think like this copycat culture thing is overdone, like on Instagram, but you see a lot of these videos. I'm like, oh, did they copy so and so? But I also do think that like we've kind of thrown everything now, particularly with AI. This is only going to get worse. Where you throw everything in the inspiration table and then spit something out, and you wind up. And I kind of unpacked it with this Under Armour example, where you start with something on the mood board, and then that mood board kind of becomes the brief, and then the brief become like you have examples in there, and then the person like just kind of ends up replicating the thing that was on the mood board that makes it to the brief, and then it becomes the design. And maybe that's what's happening with these races as well. I'm not sure.
I kind of look at it for like an event format. I don't think especially like a race format, I don't really think anything is like, it's all on the table, right? I think like copying any of that is not it's not a piece of IP. It's not a visual. It's not a tagline. It's not whatever. It's a thing people can participate in as an activity. And especially when it's so related to like a common item, like, oh yeah, it's like a run or whatever. Like I just feel like this is not a thing.
I think you've also spoken before. I mean, even when we talk about like content styles, formats, like visual hooks, I think you've kind of said like, I mean, even when it comes to your own content, you're just like, hey, people like copy it. People have like taken my script word for word, and it's just like, it is what it is. And you just need to like move on. And that's just like the nature of the world that we live in. Smaller creators are going to do it. Bigger creators are going to do it. And
yeah, well, there's no real repercussion. So look at this now. Like I was thinking about this weekend, how to handle it, because people will be comment on my videos now. Either, oh, I thought you said this different thing, and it was just someone else who looks like me saying it. Or commenting like someone else did it. Oh, well, you're just doing this person's format. I'm like, actually, it's my format. And since there's like 4 or 5 of them, it gets hard to track. And so my general response, like, I can't be upset about this. You just got to move on, or because like there's no way you can control the internet. But I'm curious how y'all would respond to that.
I think with content, it's especially tough because when something works, when a style and just like topic area works, you'll just have a lot of people who are in the space like try to copy or do something very similar to that. And just like my solution to that is to like vary the content enough or inject enough of a personality where it's just like, hey, you watch this stuff because it's me. I'm not just giving you just like raw information that anyone else can read. And I can't just be a purely like information or news-based account. And so I just kind of like shift content as a byproduct of that. I mean, when we first started making it, there was like 2 people making it, 3 people making it, and it was like us.
Just wild how far it's come. But anyway,
yeah.
Jordan,
I mean, that's what I have to remind myself sometimes. I think like if you're looking at views and you're looking at virality, for in the sports world, it's often going to be like the current event. Well, I mean, in all of ours, right? Some campaign dropped today, Jaguar or whatever. But the differentiation that I think all of us have to keep in mind is exactly what you just said, Ashwin. Like people are following me for my point of view and not for the news itself. So like they want the news, but then they want like, what's your analysis of it? And I do think there are a lot of people who can quite honestly, you can build a bigger following by just delivering the news. Like I'm seeing this and I'm like, God, am I doing something wrong sometimes? Because there are now this whole like health and fitness. There's all these little creators who are like the health and fitness creators who all look and feel very similar. But it's basically like building a publication for people who just want the news of this stuff. And you have to figure out your distinction, which is just a branding exercise in general. So if you're a brand like this Gumtree example, my friend Karsten, who I had a conversation with him, months ago. I think he is a true artist, right? He is like building this thing from scratch. He is funding it with his own money. He is pouring his blood, sweat, and tears. He is not selling out. He is doing like using sustainable materials, like he is handcrafting stuff. This man is like up in New York, like putting that in. And I think he gets extremely, I think upset and was very frustrated with a large brand like Under Armour, which I could completely understand if they're just kind of, have this large corporate machine that are then going to copy and paste that thing and then sell a lot compared to what he's been doing and trying to get by on his blood, sweat, and tears. So I can understand why they're really upset if you're a smaller brand.
And I want to kind of segue this into this kind of last point that we had here is like, when I look at these running brands, and I popped a bunch of these in the chat, they all look really, really alike, right? This idea of like, how do you capture running? And you get everyone kind of like, okay, obviously, you get some people that really stand out. I think like Tracksmith really stands out on one end because they've had like this Ivy League, this like collegiate like approach. Like everything feels very East Coast.
Jordan, is that a
and like has
Tracksmith
that vibe to it, which I feel like even when you're running, you kind of see this element to it, and like trophies and wood. And you have Bandit like on the other scale where it's like, hey, they're doing true art direction. They've got people in spaceships. They have like these really interesting, like almost futuristic looks to so much of this. Plus they have like, it's a members community and like all these other things that Bandit does. And then there's basically everybody else. And I called like a few of these out in the chat who like, they're just showing pics of people running and it's kind of rugged and outdoors. And it just doesn't, like this is currently, I know these brands are popular, but you could basically put Currently's photo visuals could be literally, they're good. They're
Satisfy.
Yeah. They're the same as everybody. Like, yeah, exactly. This is like literally Satisfy.
Yep.
And then I had another brand there too. It's like the same exact thing. Again, these are all popular brands or good brands. This is good production assets. And so I'm curious, like if you are one of these brands, because there's so many now, there's an unlimited amount of running brands to choose from, and you are trying to stand out. What are those like angles and stuff to work in? Ash, when you're in the middle of this, you're consuming running products. What do you think would help a brand stand out in this world?
I mean, I sort of think about it. Even looking at the visuals there, it's not that different from just like the millennial blending that we saw for 10 years across all of the CPG products. Like when you looked at the Instagrams and art direction and, creative direction of most of those brands, they had a similar tone of voice. They all did like flat lay product shots on neutral kind of muted backgrounds where you could swap out the product and it'd be like, okay, that Instagram now and that website works just as well for this product as did the other product. So, when I look at these, I think it's like this first question of why is it happening? And I think this is partially like everyone just pulls inspiration from things that are working. And when you are a running brand or an apparel brand or so on, you look at the competitive landscape and you're like, well, how are these guys positioning? And then you also hear through the grapevine, oh, they did $100 million last year. And maybe you're at 10 million and you're like, well, fuck, people seem to like that. It resonates. It does well. We can shoot that. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. And then that's how you get kind of everything looking the same. I think it's, so one, it's kind of like, it happens a kind of cross category. So it's not surprising, but then you have this opportunity as a result to say, well, how do you go in with a really unique point of view and stand out on every front? And I don't think it's just, like the art direction or the apparel design or the voice. I think it's like all of these pieces in one, where you look at a brand like Dr. Squatch, for example, they came into the space with like a very clear tone of voice and perspective, and that translated across every single touch point, whether it was their social, their packaging, the ads that they ran, their content, their copywriting. So there's an angle in there for, if I'm a running brand, there's an angle in there to say, hey, we actually want to speak to this personality of a runner. We're not going to do all this other stuff. Like we're going to be a fun, loud, and expressive running brand. We're not going to look super fucking cool like all of these other ones and like very edgy and very like New York style. We're going to look like baseball lifestyle 101 for running gear. We're going to do like the ice cream run shorts and like some crazy wild stuff. And like that might just like hit super well. So you can find these other like subgroups within the running community. You don't need to think of them as just like a homogenous group of, they just happen to do this activity.
So do you think there is a big enough demographic for the Desi running brand?
Yeah, of course.
Let's go. I mean, damn near has your name on it, brother.
Ashwin, do it. I think that there's an interesting perspective that probably hasn't sports apparel up until I don't know 15 years ago was functional in nature originally, right? And now it's kind of intersected with this world of fashion where you have like seasonal campaigns and people are looking at the runways and whatnot, and that the speed that you can catch up with that now is even more. And I think that's probably something that shouldn't be forfeited, but we see this all the time. Like they all start to look the same, and then somebody does something really unique outside, and that then becomes this mover where you shift and go against the grain. I have one more example of this. Speaking of that, when I was at Nike Football, there was this young brand called Battle, which is fun. They're out of Miami. They basically were like throwing caution to the wind while we were trying to shoot all these pros. They would just go shoot all these swaggy kids in Miami in high school and junior high. But now I've seen there's another brand called Next Trend. Apparently, I called it Next Round, NXT RND, and everybody jumped to my comments and was like, it's actually Next Trend. But they're like literally copy and paste the same playbook, same treatment, and have now caught up to essentially almost the same following, both around 500,000, which is just fascinating to see in this space. I think the theme there is to be original.
All right. Anything else we want to
Anything
hit?
else?
We're on here today, and this is very sports centric. If you don't follow any sports, we hope this is really enlightening for you.
Yes.
Jordan, if someone wants to learn about sports, where do you think they should get started?
They should follow me, and they're going to get more sports than they ever wanted. But we try to do different angles here. We try to it's sports may be the outdoor voices. Oren,
oh, yeah.
I feel like you're one of the only people I know, the only other males who I know who would appreciate the.
No, and I was looking, and I tweeted the thing at like midnight the other night. Yeah. So, but why don't you break down what's happening? You did a video on it.
Oh gosh, they have a let's see.
Yeah, it went out today. She put out her debut today. She was on How Long Gone.
Oh
like
my
today, this morning is a debut, which is like a crazy, bizarre niche debut. Yeah, feed.
Oh wow, they collaborated with Ty. Okay,
emptied the feed.
What's that?
They emptied the feed. That's the only post on the feed.
Oh, right? They did. Yes, this is there. There were no posts. Like a couple weeks ago, there were tons. She's now following 3 people. Ty. Oh, and all her brands.
Yeah.
Actually.
Wow.
Outdoor Voices is just a fascinating company. When I was at Nike Women's, you came in and like they were taking the world by storm. We were trying to figure out how to serve women, and everybody would be like, "You have to just look at Outdoor Voices." So they kind of did that pivot where all these other sort of traditionally male brands were trying to serve women, and Ty Haney was like, "I just want to like go walk my dog and look cute and not feel like I'm a superhero with like 3M taping all over my legs." And they created the exercise dress. They created all these incredible products that are now like, kind of paved the way. But then, I don't know, PE came in, they took her over, they kicked her out of the company. It's been a wild saga.
To dive into it, so I lived in Austin in the Outdoor Voices heyday. Outdoor Voices was based in Austin. Have some light anecdotes from this period where, it kind of took over, it dominated. They raised a bunch of money. A lot of people I know, I was in roughly the same social scene as Ty Haney, not like overlapping frequently, but like all the same friends and stuff. It's a small town. And then knew a lot of employees who are at this company who, before even PE or any of this, just with VC, we're kind of like, hey, this company is like people are in Austin. There's a pretty big like consumer and then tech related people that worked at Meta, like all these other places. There's that scene there, and people were like, hey, this company is blowing money fast. There is a fundamental issue with how this company is operating. Was like the voice on the streets for like a minute inside there. Now that said, definitely had a resonance with a particular consumer, with a particular lifestyle. And, whether we blame this on VC or we blame it on leadership, I'm sure there's some sort of shared there. But then since then has just like taken this brand name and still somehow managed to exist in the like throes of near bankruptcy for like a significant amount of time, but also has been revitalized. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but like SEC TikTok, like Bama Rush TikTok, like loves these, like some of these dresses and items. So they still have some cultural resonance with the new generation. But I do just want to kind of put that caveat in there. This was like a known mismanaged company.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Ashman.
Well, I'm interested to watch this video and see what this relaunch is about, because I know she had, after she had left Outdoor Voices, she went and started a kind of like CBD energy energy drink company called Joggy. And I've like seen it, here and there. There was this kind of like Web3 tokenized something like loyalty app that she was building, like TBZ, XYZ or something. So I'm curious like where those are now and then what her
Well, they're being
is.
followed by the core brand. So I think what we're seeing, which could be really
Just all
interesting, is we're seeing the
together.
Ty Haney ecosystem. We're seeing which I think is a blueprint for this next generation of stuff, right? Because like that is the case. A lot of like look at Grace Beverly is a great example of this. She's got like 4 businesses, and it is all based on her personality. And if you are saying that Ty Haney has that level of resonance or is about to engineer that level of resonance, then that's an interesting way to look at it.
I was having a conversation a couple days ago with these guys, a venture firm called Will Ventures, and they're doing some investing in creators, but not from the traditional model. So there is like Slow Ventures was investing in creators directly. So they'll come to Jordan, they'll be like, "Hey, we'll give you $1 million for like 4% of your earnings over the next like 10 or 15 years." And
I'll sign.
The way that that Will is approaching it, Will Ventures, is they think there is more of like a model for like a creator holding company. So you look at someone like Mr. Beast, obviously like the biggest example here, right? He has Feastables, he has the media property, he's like Night Media, he's other brands and businesses that he's likely going to launch in the future. And the whole kind of idea here is that these different businesses will, if they own the creator hold company, different aspects of his businesses will have different capital requirements. So maybe his media arm doesn't require that much capital, but maybe he wants to like launch some kind of like franchise model that then requires like a totally different cap structure. But this idea that, hey, if we can just like support the creator at its core, because they're just going to have a lot of resonance, we can get a small piece of each one of their businesses that they're going to be launching in the future. So it's interesting. And I think there's a model. I haven't followed Grace Beverly's stuff that closely, but I think there's a model there.
Well, Ty clearly is extremely charismatic, can build a following. She gets like the community. When you really dive into the stories and like the train wreck that started to happen was, I think she's a classic visionary and marketer and needed that kind of operations and business support that myself would definitely need alongside. And then they brought in kind of your traditional like J. Crew leaders and stuff, and it started to get, challenging. In fact, I dodged the biggest bullet ever. I interviewed with them for like a VP of marketing. We were looking to move back to Texas in like 2017, 18. And the interview went great. She was like, Ty's on maternity leave. She comes back next week. I'm setting up a call with
right at that
her.
time, yeah.
And they came back and like, then I read in the news like the day that she was supposed to come back and contact me for a follow-up, and she was being pushed out of her company after her maternity leave. So dodged a bullet there. But it'll be fascinating to see. Thank you for
sharing. Isn't just the idea of like you have IP that's any good, that has any level of resonance, it kind of lasts forever. Like the fact that we're still talking about Outdoor Voices in this year of our Lord 2025 is a testament to like if you have a good thing at any point, that is now just intrinsically worth so much more than something new.
Yep.
That's fair. Yeah, it's a good point. And I think she like gets that consumer, which is, I'm sure she'll parlay that into something. But man, financially, I don't know how they're going to make this work, but I'm fascinated.
Sure they're getting it for pennies on the dollar, guaranteed. I'm sure this company is 100 million, 60 million in debt, probably. And so this is the best. I don't know how she pulled this off, whether she got with a PE group and was like, hey, buy this, put me back at the helm. This is how it's going to work. Or whether they literally were like, hey, we have so little money that this is our best bet is to invest what we have back into this angle because it's kind of what the streets want, quote unquote. But I think that like you basically any solution that leads them to any level of profitability is the best chance investors get any cents on the dollar on their money back.
I remember doing this story back then, and it was like Consortium Brand Partners acquires Outdoor Voices. This is back in 24, and I don't think they acknowledge cost or...
Well, I think you're going to turn this into a lifestyle brand. In this video, there's Joggy stuff all throughout this video. There's Joggy shirts, there's Joggy drinks. So I think basically it's like, hey... And it could even be something like, hey, I have this other business that's small and somewhat profitable. We're going to add this IP on top of it. Maybe the investment in that like led over to this. There's a lot of deal structures that can make something like this work. Yeah, but this does not look like the team to operate Outdoor Voices success.
This is what when they announced this, I was like, Oh, okay. This is who's
Yes,
gonna.
those guys. I don't know. Yeah, like you look at it's just funny. I obviously, like, my day job is in a firm that does a similar thing in a different category. But like you look at our roster of people, it is a far more. There's a equal mix of women to men. Like things like that are important for female focused brands.
Yeah, no doubt. What a wild world. Can't wait to see. Okay, gents, it's been real and it's been fun.
This was we were letting Jordan cook on this one. Jordan's lane.
Thank you.
Next week we're gonna go politics and let Ashford cook. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
The Zoran campaign.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening.
All right, y'all.
Peace.